with another episode of The Pivot Point. This is our weekly discussion talking about market inefficiencies, kind of working through my tiers, talking about different metrics, and kind of talking about buying and selling opportunities based on those market values. What's going on, Mitch?
How's it going, dude? It's been a week. It's been a quiet week as far as fantasy football goes, but that's good. This time of year, we don't have any arrests. We don't have anything big things going on. Like everything's kind of just holding out. It's good.
Yeah, we're getting into the summer. We know how that goes with the dynasty cycle. But today we want to talk about, and this came up during our weekly episode, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe last week, Mitch. Greg popped in the chat, one of our Dynasty Theory patrons, the Dynasty Theory Patreon. We got the free 1 week trial. We have all kind of fun things there. The tiers, I had added a trade calculator in there. We have some partnerships with Jeremy at Dynasty Daddy and some exclusive things with Dynasty Theory tiers. So there's a lot going on, and early access to the pivot point here. But Greg said, how does like the young talent coming in at wide receiver impact the dynasty wide receiver landscape? And I think there's been a lot of good conversations actually since that question was posed in the Dynasty Theory Discord, and talking about the young talent versus the production that you can get from some of these veterans. So as we're sitting here in June, I know you just mentioned, Mitch, obviously it's a little bit of a quiet time within the dynasty calendar, but how are you viewing things from a wide receiver wide perspective, maybe as opposed to what we would have seen last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? How do you view the position as a whole?
I think the more you get into dynasty, the more you kind of get into the wide receivers, because it's been brought up forever that that's how you build your teams. You go young at quarterback if possible, but you build your teams through wide receivers. So what happens is after a while, you start to see guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., right? We love him as a talent coming into the league. Like in your tiers, he's solo by himself in the tier 2 wide receiver 5, right? And he's up that high in redraft as well. So he's someone that actually makes sense. But then when you drop down and you see some other names, there's guys who are kind of there because they're 23 and we have hope that they will produce. While there's other guys who are in a tier lower than them that are 27, 28, who just full on produce already. So I think wide receiver is the one to where you could get caught a little bit. You could be like, hey, Juju going into his second year, all of a sudden he's wide receiver too. We're so excited about him. And he maintained that value for a while, even though he wasn't producing. I do think if you're playing this not to have, the dynasty value, the best value in the league, right? But you're playing to try to win a little bit, it's a great time to start to move off those younger assets because people are still really in rookie mode. They're in young dynasty build mode. And then you can move out and get some vets that are actually going to really produce on your team for a lot cheaper, because once middle of August hits, then all of a sudden those veteran wide receivers will start to creep up in value, and those rookies just kind of start to hang out. Rookies, second-year players, third-year players, those types.
Yeah, there's so many different directions, and we have so little time here because we are going live at 10 a.m. with Dan on the weekly show. But there's so many directions you can go with this from a wide receiver perspective. And a few examples, conversations that came up in the Discord, it was the discussion between A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson. Where should they be valued? Where should they be going? Most people prefer Garrett Wilson in a 1-for-1 swap. We had some folks that wanted A.J. Brown. And it comes down to the expectation from a production standpoint, and can a player like Garrett Wilson grow from a point per game perspective versus AJ Brown, who we know is kind of locked in as that wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 on your team that you just throw in your lineup and you don't have to worry about it. But then it's like, he's 26 already. And I know, like, it's so funny and it's so stupid. It really is. But we're like, okay, next year he's 27. That's starting to get to that point where even a slight decline in production, or even if there is no slight decline in production, you start to see a hit in value. See Deebo Samuel. He's 28 now. And he is going as a dynasty wide receiver 3, not the dynasty wide receiver 3, a wide receiver dynasty 3, because he's into those upper 20s. You can look at guys like, they don't have that high end ceiling necessarily, but Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, 27, 28. Christian Kirk, he's in that group. So you start to get to these guys, and it's like, if you're not going to give me, and Mitch, cover your ears, but I've been digging into Warp a lot. I know.
All right, that's good. That's good.
The more numbers and letters
The
that
little graphs that no one really understands. Yeah.
I know. But the big thing with that is looking at it positionally from settings to settings, not so much the players. But I digress. Talking about a player like AJ Brown or Tyreek Hill, where they are older, obviously, but they are giving you that production over replacement. And it's like Tyreek Hill, especially, he's 30 years old. But we had this discussion with Travis Kelce last week, right, Mitch? As long as he is playing, as long as he is on that field, he just gives you too much value. You go to the running backs, you look at a Christian McCaffrey, just gives you too much production where it doesn't necessarily line up with the dynasty value because he's not a super young asset. So it's always finding that balance. A lot of people, they want to get out 1 year ahead. But it's like, if you would have done that on a Tyreek Hill, a Travis Kelce, a Christian McCaffrey, it's tough sledding when you look back at the trade you probably made. But then you look at other guys that it would have worked out. So it's kind of a fine line to walk. But where are you, like, on that example of Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown? Like, how much are you projecting ahead from a 1-2 year perspective, how the 2024 season is going to play out versus there is far less risk in the short term when we look at AJ Brown? Presumably.
Yeah, as far as like Garrett Wilson, I think it's a tough one, right? If you bring up another name with AJ Brown, but I do think we've seen Garrett Wilson be able to have that top 5 upside. Like, we've seen games to where we've seen that. I would still prefer to have AJ Brown on my teams, but I completely understand on when someone would go like, hey, Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers coming back. By all means, he should be able to hit that upside. We saw it preseason this past year. I really do think that let me give you another 2-for-2 swap, right? Let's talk about someone like Jordan Addison, who is a great wide receiver 2, right? Great wide receiver 2. I think most teams would love to have him. Sorry, wide receiver 2 NFL wise.
Yes, yeah. I understood.
Right. I have to be particular about this. Or Debo. Like, Debo was hated. You cannot trade away Debo in Dynasty without taking just a huge chunk of his value, because like, you're just not getting a lot for him. But people still like Jordan Addison because he's young, he'll perform, he's tied to the team for a while. But in my view, I would take Debo Samuel over Jordan Addison and be willing to add to Jordan Addison to get to Debo Samuel, even though I don't think you have to, because of the way the Dynasty community reacts to certain wide receivers. We see it time and time again, but I don't think there's a reason to have a Jordan Addison on your roster if you could have Debo. I don't think you're really gaining anything positionally week by week. And yes, your Dynasty daddy value is probably less. And I mean, that's the huge talking point over the next 3 months, whether it's Dynasty daddy or whatever value calculator you use. Everyone's like, haha, look at how high I am compared to everybody else.
I mean, I have my tiers on Dynasty Daddy now.
Exactly. And it's amazing. Patrons. Yeah. I mean, it's a great thing. But when you're talking about contending teams and making money, being able to move a Jordan Addison for the hated Debo Samuel, I think that's a move that a lot of people should make. But a lot of people won't go out on Twitter and say it because it was like, well, value-wise, you're losing a lot of value there. You're getting older. You never want to get older instead of getting younger. But sometimes you do it just to win.
It is that fine line. And we're kind of talking about that big clump here when you talk about like a Debo Samuel versus a Jordan Addison, guys that could be wide receiver 18 for dynasty purposes,
Mm.
wide receiver 36. Like it's so close together. Like I have separation between my tiers, but like we get to that 28 to 44 range. I have those guys all clumped together.
Right.
Like, and that's the point. If you haven't listened to an episode of the Pivot Point, that's the point of this show, identifying those market inefficiencies, finding the opportunities, within those margins where you can pick up value, ideally lose minimal production, if any, and you're playing the dynasty value game to your advantage. Like Deebo Samuel, I agree with you. I have him in a tier above Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba on a fantasy calc, talking about the different metrics
Uh-huh.
and ways to kind of look at the market. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 28, Jordan Addison 27, JSN 25, Rashee Rice 36, Keon Coleman 32. So like you have some of these guys, and I know we're talking specifically about Deebo Samuel here, but I think there's a more of an overarching conversation and strategy to be looked at here. If you have a player that you could potentially get a plus with, whether it's a 2-for-1, whether it's a 2-for-2 where you get an upgrade elsewhere, there is that market inefficiency as a whole with you get these wide receivers. And then it starts to get even murkier. Like, how are you looking at guys like Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp? They're all in that 30 to 31 range. The only old one I'm excluding is Tyreek Hill, because again, he just gives you so much over
Yes.
replacement.
Yeah, so you're kind of looking at him, and in your tiers, you have like Lad McConkey and JSN right next to him, right? We have high hopes for Lad McConkey, right? But we know that there's issues with his profile. And then JSN, I've always said like JSN was a good prospect, not an elite prospect, but he was the best that we had last year. And that's just how it worked out. So people still like him for that reason. But when you're talking about Adams and Evans, probably Diggs, Cooper Kupp is the injury one to where I still don't know if he's coming back. But let's just say he's as healthy and he's going to perform just as well as Devontae Adams and Mike Evans, right? If I'm on a contending team, those are the trades I'm trying to make, because you could get an addition when you move off of a JSN for one of those old guys. You get something added when you move off of Lad McConkey for some of those guys. And we're not talking about veterans who just aren't going to produce. These are elite talents who, if you're playing best ball or redraft this year, all of a sudden Lad McConkey is way below Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams isn't going to retire next season, right? He's not going to all of a sudden just drop off the age cliff, and we're not going to hear from again like what we see with a lot of running backs. So I think buying into these veteran wide receivers is a very, very smart move, because you don't have to use your picks to do it. Like if you're trading for a Lad McConkey, someone's probably going to want a rookie pick, right? But if you're trading away a Lad McConkey for a veteran wide receiver, all of a sudden you still have your rookie picks to help replenish your team in future seasons. But you're also getting more points on the board to hopefully win some money at the end of this.
Now, when you look at these wide receivers, we've talked about a lot of 1-for-1 situations. From an age perspective, we kind of covered that 26 to 28 range, 30 plus versus the young guys. What are your thoughts on looking at these guys, especially the veterans we talked about, the Deebos, the Devontaes, and when you start to dip into your 25 and 26 picks?
As far as like I'm trading 25, 26 picks for those guys?
Yes, because one of the big discussions in the Discord over the weekend was a trade that I posted involving my Jordan Addison being shipped off for a package that was centered around a 26 first. And there were several comments like, I don't love the idea of trading my picks 2 years out, because you don't know how crazy things could get.
For me right now, with the way I've seen Dynasty go the last couple of years, I have to be very confident in the commissioner to want to do it. But if I'm confident in the commissioner, I'm more than happy to trade for those 26 and 27s, because I'm going to be playing those leagues then. I'm not orphaning to move out. So as long as I have a commissioner that I know is going to refill the league, that settings aren't going to be changed for whatever reason, that I could just move with these values moving forward, then I'm more than happy to do it because you're getting such a huge discount on 26.
Now, what about the other way where you're moving your picks?
I'm more than happy to do it. More than happy to. Yeah.
Even if
I wouldn't do it for a Jordan Addison, mind you, but I am willing to move those future picks on a team to where I think let me put it this way. I consider myself a contender, right? I consider myself top 4 at least. I'm happy to move my 26 to try to make sure that I'm really contending. I'm not doing it so like, hey, I have a hole in my starting wide receiver spot, so I'm moving to fill that spot. I'm moving it for depth, right? I'm like, hey, this team's already stacked. If I could get this one more player, then I have that much more depth on top of it. I could keep moving for in this year and next year to contend without having to use my rookie picks to fill my roster.
2 questions popped up as we typically do. You say something, it sparks something in my brain. The first part, not really a question, but a statement. Yeah. You have to be, if you're moving a 26 pick, I think it's not just like, oh, I'm a contender today.
Yes.
What are you looking like as 25 progresses? Like there's a lot of teams, you know, they look at their starter rank on dynastydaddy.com, whether you're looking at, you know, ADP, best ball, whatever. And you look at it, you're like, okay, but they have Rodgers, they have Kelsey, they have Tyreek. So on paper, it looks great from a starting perspective right now. What does it look like in a year and a half time? So I think just being a little more aware if you are moving your 26 or 27 first. I know there was a trade question involving a 27 pick earlier this morning that you need to, one, if you're trading for them, like Mitch said, spot on, have confidence in your commissioner. The league's not going to fold. Hopefully it's not a league on my fantasy league, only because they're so tough to fill. And I still am an MFL proponent, but it's so hard to get a new league on there just because not a lot of people want to take on orphans on MFL. But again, I digress. My devil's advocate question to you, if I can remember it now, because I talked for so long. You talked about making that move, not if you have a hole in your starting lineup, but if you are looking for a depth piece that really just secures your confidence in your roster. Would it not be better to hold on to that pick and make the move when necessary?
I think so. But you're talking about values, right? So what kind of value are you getting with that player? If someone is down on, say, we've been saying Debo, so we might as well just keep it on Debo, right?
Debo.
Someone's like, hey, I'm rebuilding. I can't have this aged veteran on my team, so I'm going to move off of him. But I will give you like Debo and James Conner for your 26 first and something else small added in, right? That's something I'm doing. I know I'm getting James Conner, who knows what's going to happen next year, but I'm really getting that solid other piece that I could plan on using for 2 to 3 seasons while everyone else is waiting on that 26 value to actually end up hitting, right?
And if you are contending, and as the season progresses, so I'm playing devil's advocate to my own devil's advocate, it's like I'm myself sitting here with the pitchfork, but also with the halo, but then another pitchfork behind it. You're contending. You then look to shop that pick. People now are a little bit more, hey, I think it's going to be a later pick, especially if it's 2025. So I'm going to need a little bit more, or I'm giving you less. So it's like, can you get that, just for the sake of this example, that Debo plus Connor at that time? Whereas today, June 2nd, there's no market on those veterans. I want to spit some Debo trades at you. I'm not cherry picking here. These are the first trades in the dynastydaddy.com trade database that came up. All right. 12 team, start 8, half PPR, half point tight end premium. Jordan Addison, 312 and 409. So Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
For Debo and a 26 first. That is a trade that went down.
Yeah, I'll take the 26 first.
Now let me ask
And the
this too.
Debo's had it in.
Oh, I mean, get your
Yeah.
hammer out. I'm smashing it.
Yeah.
That is the first trade that is showing. So again, not cherry picking, but start 8, start 9.
Mhm.
Me personally, I am far more willing to move off of these Jordan Addisons, Lad McConkey, JSN, these guys that, yes, I think they're going to be good. Jaden Reed,
Yes.
Xavier Leggett, Jalen Polk, maybe. These guys that, yes, they could be good, but in a start 8, like, are you excited to start a Jordan Addison?
If you are, you're not winning. Like
Right,
you're
like
not.
and I love Jordan.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Where is he? Like,
Behind
I
your
love Jordan Addison. I got this. I got the Pitt shirt on. I got the Pitt helmet. We're gonna ignore his time at USC, but like you talk about these guys, so I think I'm far more willing to move off of them, not for this package specifically, because it doesn't matter what the format is. I'm smashing the Debo side, but and Greg says, hopefully you're never starting those guys in a start 8. Maybe a bye week. Maybe there's injuries, but it's tough sledding. All right, next trade. Traylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, and a 25 4th, or Debo Samuel and a 25 3rd.
Debo. I mean,
but that's the market that we're talking.
Exactly. That's the thing is people get this. And we can bring up Debo. It was Devontae Adams. I mean, it probably still is Devontae Adams. I bet if you looked him up, you get those exact same kind of traits for him. And everyone's like, oh, Debo's hurt, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Debo was wide receiver 13 points per game last year, missed 2 games. That's with a 1.1 PPG game in there as well. And the dude just produces. He's very good.
We talk about the JSN Debo Samuel situation. I don't know if you really could get a plus with Debo. In a start 11, 12-team Superflex full PPR, somebody got Russell Wilson added to Debo Samuel for their JSN. And I know Russell Wilson, a lot of people, whatever. Even if he's nothing,
yeah,
I think that's a win. I don't know what this is. Somebody had to have slipped, but I'm going to read this anyway. And disclaimer, I do not think this is going to get done anywhere. I would love more context as to why this happened. Maybe Caleb Williams slipped to the 109, but 109 for Debo Samuel and 110. What?
Okay.
No need to even respond.
I saw someone on Twitter. Sorry, just talk about trades real quick. This last week was hyping up how they had the they had the 102 and the 103, and they were more than happy to trade that to get the 101. I'm like, you're insane. Like, I'm sorry. That's absolutely crazy.
That's too much. Debo for 204 and 301. Here actually is an interesting one. 12 teams, start 9, only half PPR. George Pickens, Debo Samuel, and a 25 2nd for Tyreek Hill and Brian Robinson.
Nah, I'm taking Debo. Yeah.
Are you really?
I am. Oh, yeah.
In a start 9 with.
Yeah, because Debo starting for you, right? And the other wide receiver was, sorry, it's slipping.
George Pickens, Debo Samuel,
for you.
And a 25 2nd. But Tyreek Hill just get like. See, this is an interesting one because it's kind of like old versus old, but in the less old, you're getting a little bit of value with Pickens.
Yeah, like I mean, everyone loves Tyreek, and I'd love to have him on my team, but I don't really want to start Brian Robinson in those settings.
I just think Tyreek offers way too much in a start 9, but at least we found one that
we could argue a little bit, right?
Yeah.
All right, you got time for one more.
One more. Can I throw an Adams one at you?
I suppose.
Let's throw an Adams one, just because we spent some time on him. Nope. I looked up Drake May somehow. I don't even know how that happened. All right. What the fuck is that? Here's a good one. Yeah. Devontae Adams for Zay Flowers, Tyjae Spears in 201, 12-team start 10 PPR.
That's a lot for Adams. I'll take the package for Adams.
Yeah, that one, I don't know necessarily that you're going to have to spend that
That's a
much.
lot,
Then
to be
2
honest.
trades down, Devontae Adams for 204.
Yeah. which makes sense.
Yeah, we're at the point that I think that if you find the right manager, like, especially this is where paying attention to the chat, paying
Mhm.
attention to trade bait, looking to blow this up. I don't think so many people are completely open to showing their hand like that, but if they are, you can find nice values on those veterans. And with all this youth coming in, you start to see more and more of these discounts, especially this time of year. And Mitch, you talk about so often every single year during the offseason. You look at values today,
Mhm.
June 2nd, 24, 23, 22, 21. You have the veterans here, July, August, September. They start to creep up. So even guys like, if you like Jalen Waddle, if you like Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, now would be the time to test the waters. You could tell your story, a narrative about all of those guys,
Mhm.
and it kind of throws you, off of them. But so don't get caught up on the name specifically. But overall, I think this is a very good discussion talking about once you get outside of those really tippy top Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the way you can maneuver within these tiers, but also find that balance between veteran production, youth from a value perspective, and then ideally you get the youth with the expectation in the bump in production, right? That's like the sweet spot.
Yeah, no, perfect way to sum it up.
All right. Well, we got about a minute and a half until we jump over to the weekly episode of Dynasty Theory. We'll be joined by Dan Lamagna. Hopefully you all enjoyed this show. If like I said, I think I might spit this one out on the YouTube channel. So if you made it this far, check out the Dynasty Theory Patreon. We got the free 7-day trial, a lot of really good tools and resources in there. If you don't like it after the 7 days, bounce, doesn't cost you anything. For Mitch Sorensen, I'm John Bauer. We'll catch everybody later. Peace.